Well, I had a request to explain what the difference is between a firefighting dozer and a regular dozer. When it comes down to it, there really isn't that much different. The only difference is the requirements that you have to have on the dozer, where you don't need it on a construction dozer or whatever. So, to explain what requirements are required on a dozer, for one, you have to have screen far forward, is basically just in front of the operator in the cab. The front forward windows do not need to have screen, but it has to have screen wrapped around the back, all the way around, to basically that point on a dozer. The second thing you have to have is sweeps or limb risers or whatever you want to call it. So you have to have the sweeps. You do not have to have the protective covering over the top of the roof. You do not have to have that covered up like that. Although it is really nice because it kind of keeps the sun out of your eyes, and it keeps it a little cooler in the cab. There is a minimum height on the grousers that will pass and not pass. I do not know what the minimum height is. I believe it's 1 inch, but don't quote me on that. I think it's something like that. All I know is when we bring take the excavator on a fire, there's some inspectors that like to nitpick it, and they tell us we do not have minimum height on the grousers on the excavator. But the problem is, if anybody's been around an excavator, unless somebody literally put crawler excavator or dozer tracks or single grouser pads on it, you're not going to get an inch, even a brand new one, unless you get a really big excavator. It is not mandatory to have a hydraulic 6-way blade. It's not mandatory to have a 6-way blade. They prefer a hydraulic 6-way blade, but they do not. It's not mandatory. It does. So going back older, it has to be hydraulic. That is part of the requirement. No cable dozers are accepted, but it's to each their own. They think that the cables are, which I agree, they're a thing of the past, but you blow a hydraulic hose, you're done. You break a cable, you drag more cable off the winch or the power unit, hook it back up and go back to work. No taking the hose off, go and get a hose made, bringing it back down for however long, maybe a whole day depending on where you're at. But whatever, it's the way it is. You do not need rock guards, but I guess it's whoever's operating preference. I'd much prefer rock guards to try to keep the tracks on than the rollers. Most dozers, you know, they just have a single rock guard right here. I don't even know if they consider that a rock guard. These rock guards on this dozer I built because, as I stated to somebody, I don't know if it got through to everybody. He asked me how I like this dozer, the Case dozer, and I told him it's a great dozer, but parts for it are very expensive, and some parts you can't get no more. And this dozer is a 2006. To me, is not a very old dozer, but to Case, it's obsolete. So they designed this thing. It's great. I get it's a good dozer, but they designed it to wear out. There is no grease certs on any of these pins. We replaced the main pin, dozer arm pin. The new pins were greased. The old pins were not. But there is no grease certs on this. The only grease cert on this dozer for the dozer itself, other than now the main pins back there, is those grease certs right there. The rest of this stuff is non-greasable. Well, oh, I think my brother drilled and tapped and put grease certs in here, but other than that, there's no grease certs on it. Lights, you are required to have 2 forward facing lights and 2 reverse facing lights. You have to have a backup alarm, which, you know, if people keep their dozers up, it should have all this stuff from the factory, so there's nothing unusual there. But it is supposed to have 2 forward facing lights and 2 reverse facing lights. You have to have a shovel and an axe on it. Don't ask me why. I am not going to get off this dozer to grab an axe or a shovel while I have a dozer sitting here. Sorry. I have no clue why you would have to have a shovel and an axe on a dozer. But every piece of equipment that goes on fire has to have a shovel and an axe. It doesn't matter if it's an excavator, doesn't matter if it's a road grader, doesn't matter what it is, it has to have it. That's pretty much it on this. I don't know of anything else. I do believe you have to have something on the back to at least hook to, in case they need to drag you out or you need to drag something out. But other than that, there's nothing. Now the D5 that we have, it does not have, it's pretty much identical to this one. Matter of fact, I can walk over to it right here and show you guys. So, but it is not, this is a 85 model, I think. And when we bought it, it was open rope. We bought a cab for air conditioning. It did have the sweeps already on it. But this is a 6-way blade here, but it's a manual angle. Everything else is hydraulic on it, but it's a manual angle. Full rock guards. The screens, as I say, these are screened to the front door, but the front is not screened. But that one also has the plate over it that we put over them. It keeps the stuff off the tractor, limbs, pine needles, whatever, off of it. That, and if it starts raining, it kind of, you know, if the wind's not blowing 110 miles an hour, it's good. But this one has a winch on it. Yet not required. It used to be you get more points in the system for a winch, but now they changed that does not gain you anything anymore, having the winch. But other than the cab, this is how this dozer, we bought it. We bought it just like that. It had the sweeps on it already, but other than the cab and the screens on the side of the engine, we bought it that way. We put the, well, my brother put the grouser stocks to it. And to be honest with you, doing the grouser stock, that grouser stock will last longer than the pads will. The original grouser pad, or the grousers on the pads, no matter if you buy new ones or not. So, but I hope that answers somebody's question. That is what's required on a fire cat to qualify. But as far as anything other than the screens and the sweeps, it's pretty much the same. There is no difference. It's the same dozer. There's no fancy fire suppression system under it. There's nothing. So, I mean, you have to have a fire extinguisher in it, but it's just the way it is. That's what it has to, it's required to have a fire extinguisher. So everything that's on fire has to have a fire extinguisher, an ABC fire extinguisher. So anyways, I hope that helps you guys out. There's the lowdown on the what's different. Sorry I was a little late